Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. This is Orphanlast, aka Skylar Madison, and today I'm going to be making a late birthday present for a friend of mine. They recently had a birthday, and I missed it, and it's only until recently that I've had the time to actually start working on the present. And since my channel is centered on my artwork, I'm making it into a video. But since I'm making it into a video, I need to explain a few things because there's a few things in this image that appear to be religious symbols. I showed this image to a family member a few years ago, and he kept trying to find meaning in the image, and I kept telling him that
it's just a doodle.
I had no pre-planned ideas as to what the composition would be or anything like that. I let the image speak to me rather than speaking to the image. And why is there a Star of David? Well, I liked how it looks. Why is there a severed eye like there's an eye on the dollar bill?
Because I noticed that it looked like a dollar bill a little bit, and I thought a severed eyeball would change it up a bit.
But unlike the dollar bill, this image doesn't say
New World Order.
Instead, it says,
The all-seeing eye has you.
What does that all mean? Well, I doubt anyone really knows what New World Order means on the dollar bill, although you'll run into all sorts of conspiracy theorist quacks straight off of the History Channel that sure think they do. So why did I write
The all-seeing eye has you?
Because it seemed interesting at the time, but ultimately had no extra meaning other than that. But my brother looked at me at that point, and he looked a little bit irritated and possibly offended. And since we live in a politically correct world resembling George Orwell's Newspeak straight out of 1984, where everyone's apt to be offended to the point where it's a world founded on being offended at and hating everything. One which you have the words to communicate things of importance, but no one's willing to understand or listen because they're just too damn offended. One which resembles Newspeak in that you're still speaking gibberish because you have to dance around your speech in order to communicate, and everyone gets lost somewhere in the middle of you trying to kindly communicate everything. So for good measure, they'll just be offended anyways, because that's the new default in a society where victimhood is the new virtue. So I'll try to be polite, but I'll also try to be as direct as possible. But ultimately, what does this image mean? Well, the answer is, are you ready for it?
Nothing. This image means nothing. There's no real thought process behind the image.
Some people may ask how that's even possible. And my answer to that is, how is it possible that the best thing most people can draw is a stick figure? And if the answer is that they just don't have the patience, then there you have it. That's how. Somewhere along the lines of not having patience, most people didn't have the patience to become an artist that draws an image that can be interpreted as controversial and still say,
I was literally in a state of zen, not really even thinking of what I was drawing. So this image literally has no meaning.
But if I'm forced to use after-the-fact reasoning or apply a retroactive meaning to this image, I'll go ahead and describe it to you now. But please keep in mind that what I'm about to describe is an imposed meaning to this image, because there's no actual intent or meaning to this image. So after many years of me looking at this image, I've asked myself multiple times, what could this image even mean? And this is what I've come up with. So there's a Star of David that's associated with Judaism. I personally am not a Jew. Contrary to what most people think, the Torah and the Bible, the Old Testament, are pretty much the same thing. I hear the Torah has a few less books, but from what I've read, it's the same thing. The main bit of controversy among Christians and Jews as far as the Old Testament is involved, it's a particular verse that I can't quite place, but the way the Jews interpret it is that the Anointed One will be born of a young woman, and the Christians basically interpret that exact same verse as saying that the Anointed One would be born of a virgin, the Anointed One being Jesus, by the way. And you can expect these sorts of controversies or different interpretations to come from a book that's been translated where the original copy in the original language has actually been lost. So most every version of the Bible are translations of an already translated book. So there's a lot of stuff that's lost in translation. clearly. Then, once Jesus was said to have been born and died, the Christians have then added books, that being the New Testament. Then later on, much later on, the Mormons came along and added their Book of Mormon, Doctrine of Covenants, and Pearl of Great Price. Keep in mind that I was raised as a Mormon, and if you want to talk about how racist Mormons are or how they're not really Christians or whatever, please keep in mind how little I actually give a crap. I understand the arguments, and I'm not an activist, nor am I an apologist. And if being a victim is really your favorite virtue and you really want to tell me all about it, it's just that important to you, I promise I'll be as rude as I possibly can so that you'll continue to validate yourself with your newly found virtue of being a victim. Okay? Besides, I'm not a Mormon anymore. So I guess my code of conduct would be like the severed eye resting on a symbol where all three, Mormonism, Christianity, and Judaism, originated from. When I was in my younger 20s, I felt as though I was lied to for quite a while. I kind of felt like an orphan, and I was asking myself quite often, why would my parents lie to me? There's no way that they actually believed this. Why would they perpetuate a lie? Or at least this is basically what I felt at the time. I was pretty lost. I tried all sorts of different codes of conduct, different philosophies and stuff like that towards life, but in the end I wound up realizing that I behaved with a code of conduct my whole life, trying to live up to an impossible standard because that's just me. That's who I am. Mormonism has what's called the Articles of Faith, which is a quick summary of what Mormons believe. It's at the end of every Book of Mormon, or you can Google it if you'd like. I kind of doubt that you guys will, but it would bring a little bit more context to what I'm talking about with this voiceover. I don't believe in the first article. I believe that we are accountable for our own actions and our own actions alone. So I partially agree with the second article. I don't believe in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, or seventh article of faith. I believe that the Bible is a good book, like the Iliad or other mythologies, or even the MCU. It's entertaining and has about as interesting of a moral code as any of Shakespeare's literature, so I don't believe in the 8th article. I don't believe in the 9th article or the 10th article. I believe that we all have every right to live according to the dictates of our own conscience. I believe that when in Rome, do as the Romans do, obey the laws of the land. So I agree with the 12th article. I believe in being honest, true, chaste, benevolent, virtuous, doing good to all men. I would say I agree with the admonition of Paul, believe all things, hope for all things, and endure many things, and hope to be able to endure all things. If there is anything virtuous, lovely, or of good report, or praiseworthy, I seek after those things. So I most certainly agree with the 13th article. Comparatively, this is similar to the 10 Commandments. I don't believe in a deity or a creator. I don't think that I will answer to anyone when I die. I don't think that consciousness continues after we die. I don't believe in the first commandment. I think that worshiping money and the things it can buy are shallow pursuits, and it's something that's much too plentiful in the world today. I agree with the second commandment under a vastly different interpretation. Although I got into some stupid habits in my younger 20s, I tend to think that having clean language is a praiseworthy goal, so I agree with the third commandment. Although I always appreciate having Sundays off, I don't agree with the fourth commandment. I most certainly agree with respecting your father and mother, especially mine. I agree with the 5th commandment. I agree with the 6th commandment, don't kill. I agree with the 7th, don't commit adultery. I agree with the 8th, don't commit theft. I agree with the 9th commandment, be truthful in word and deed. Don't envy, covet, or seek after that which isn't yours, be it someone else's Lamborghini, their wife or girlfriend, or anything that pertains to what they've invested their time and energy in, emotionally or financially. So I suppose it could be said that the values I have today are like a severed eye of what I had in my upbringing. I also don't think belief is a choice. You are either convinced or you're not. and willfully trying to force yourself to believe something when everything in you says to the contrary is like willingly sticking your head into the sand and saying,
Wow, there's so much clean air to breathe here.
So that pretty much takes care of all of the religious imagery of the image here. So what does the text, "the all-seeing eye has you," mean? Like I said earlier, the only times that I have ever regretted anything is when I act contrary to my upbringing. And although I may try as hard as I might to break the mold, I am the mold, and I accept that. So really, there's nothing controversial about this image, especially if I were to impose this retroactive description of it. It'd be more of a description of me than it would be a description of religion. So suppose I were to die, and suppose I was wrong. Suppose I found myself at the judgment seat of the God of Abraham. I genuinely don't think I'd have anything to worry about. I also think that if there were a heaven, we'd still be asking the question, why do I even exist in the first place? And now I have to keep on asking this question forever? Like Sisyphus, forever rolling the proverbial boulder up to the top of the mountain, only for it to roll back down again, knowing you'll have to start all the way over again in the morning. Same task, forever. So here's the final image that I came up with. There was a few little tweaks that I made off camera. It was only like about 2 minutes of missed footage, but you guys didn't really miss much. I mean, I just modified some minor things with the colors and a little bit with the eyeball there. I really like how this image came out, and I think that my friend's going to be really happy with their birthday present. Anyways, guys, that pretty much concludes it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And if you guys would like to get more notifications from me, feel free to click on the bell, or go ahead and follow me on Twitter. A link is supplied in the video description below. And if you guys would like to see more of my content, feel free to click on anything that's appearing on the screen right now. Thank you very much for your time.